Is it just started?
Potential concept of great things happen. And I just love reminding people that you get to choose, get it and do it first. That's the love. I choose love.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Katie Ryan. I'm an English professor. I'm the founder and education coordinator of the Appalachian Prison Book Project, also known as APBP. And with Raina Molman and Jim Nolan, I'm helping to build the WVU Higher Education in Prison Initiative. I want to thank the graduate students who made tonight happen. Danielle Stoneberg, Darren Lester, Leslie Wilbur, Jody Link, Raina Molman, and Destiny Harper. Our gratitude to the WVU Libraries for this gorgeous space, to our sponsors, APBP, the Eberly College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Social Work, and the Department of English. And thank you all for being here, both in person. We have a full room, had to get more chairs, always a good problem. And everyone online, thanks for your patience. And also know that during the, anytime during the talk, you can drop questions into the chat box. When I'm asked how I got involved in abolition work and higher education and prison work, I think about a day over 25 years ago when I walked into a prison visiting room through a door marked condemned, a word that literally means with the damned. And I became friends with tonight's luminous guest. Renaldo Hudson is an educator, a community organizer, and an artist. He is the education director at the Illinois Prison Project, a remarkable effort in Illinois. After 37 years in prison, Renaldo went in when he was 19. He walked out 2 years ago, and he immediately reached back. This radical commitment to the next person is the heart of freedom movements. I have a bundle of letters Renaldo wrote over the years, words that move to Marvin Gaye and reflect on liberatory history, education, self-love. He wrote, "I don't know if any school could hold my mind." The letters contain the earliest traces of Stateville Speaks, a prison newspaper he founded, Lockdown Prison Heart, a book of personal essays he collected, and the Building Block Program, a model peer education program he co-created. These letters also register 1,000 blows and disappointments. He often reminded me to look at the stars and to call Angela Davis. From a place of deprivation, extreme isolation, Renaldo insisted on this. And those of you in the room heard him insisting on this just a minute ago. We are forced to face each other with hearts of love, or we will not make it. Way back, you told me you wanted to talk to one of my classes. This morning, we drove 30 minutes in rain to a prison, and you sat down with students taking my literature class. I watched their faces intent on your story, lifted by your presence. Thank you for going back inside. Thank you for doing this work the way only you can. And thank you for asking this afternoon, what more can we do? Tucked into every envelope you mailed to me was the certainty of today. In 1999, you wrote, "It's going to be all right. I feel it." I realize people think it's just wishful thinking, but hold on and watch, Katie. I'm still holding on. I used to learn what Renaldo was up to through the US Postal Service. Now I click on podcasts, webinars, the BBC, NBC, and I watch my friend light up the world. It is my great honor and joy to welcome Renaldo Hudson.
Yay. And I want to say that again, watch. And we're just getting started. Y'all hear me? We're just getting started. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Yeah, yeah, how you gonna lay there and not have my pretty beautiful face out there? Hello, world, right? I just want to say really quickly, thank you, Katie, because one of the things that don't get mentioned enough is that I was able to maintain my sense of purpose, my sense of belonging, because you came in and loved me, and your father came in and loved me, and you didn't judge me. You didn't allow my really horrible past to decide what I could be. And you said, hey, we just here to love you. And I was like, man, like that love thing is real, you know? And I'm not a perfect person. I know I look like I am. I do, right? I do. Like I look like I don't. It is, the hat is bad, right? Like that's my self-care. Like I get hats and shoes, right? But I just want to say that, and I really love this work. I love higher education, because when people ask me, and I promise I'm gonna get to the presentation, but I would really do a disservice to so many people that chose to love us, to not come out and love on everyone I get a chance to love on. And I promise you all, I see all the disappointments and the hardships, and I pay attention to those things, but I flush the toilet. And I tell people all the time, give the courtesy flush. And if you don't know what that means, when you're in a cell with someone and you're having one of those movements, you know, right? Flush it, right? The same thing in life, when someone release some smelly stuff around you, rather than holding on to it and having a grudge, don't limit your life like that. Just, you know what, I'm gonna flush this thing and move on, because now, right, you have room to do something else. And so I just really want to say that really quickly. Thank you. And I really love, I'm telling y'all, I'm in love with West Virginia. And it's really, I already called my boss in Illinois and said, it's going to be kind of hard to come back to Illinois, because I'm just loving the spirit. I really am. And I'm not just saying that because you all are here. I was telling Katie, I drove 2 hours one day to a town, and it was me and 2 people, right? And I was like, man, and we were doing the presentation, and I was like, I'm doing this presentation like there's 1 million people here, because I believe in the message. I believe in the importance of the work. And so I flew into West Virginia, right? Well, I actually flew into Pittsburgh, right? And then I had to get on the train. I thought they was trying to trick me, right? Because I'm like, no, like in all the few airports that I've been in, you don't get on a train to get to the front door. Like, y'all trying to trick me off to somewhere. And so my brain really started to like, hey, like, is this kind of like the trip back to Africa or something? Like, I don't know what they was, I'm like, they trying to get rid of a brother. But I found out that that was necessary. And I even lost my phone, right? And the first thing Katie said when I realized I lost my phone, she said, it's gonna be okay. Like, these are good people. And my father always reminded me to trust me. I'm like, okay, I was being still, right? And I have this device on my computer called Find My Phone, and it located it. And make a long story short, we watched the phone come across the airport. And I was like, it came like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yeah, that's, you know, technology, right? But it was really amazing that someone, actually a female, went into the male's bathroom, got the phone, and I called her on my other phone. And she's like, yeah, I got your phone. Like, how can I get it to you? I'm saying that to say, when I say I love this space, when I love West Virginia, things like that just remind you of, man, it is good people, right? So anyway, so thank you all. And thank you for inviting me to West Virginia. And I plan on coming back as much as y'all let my plane land. And I say my plane, because anytime I get in any space, I feel like it's mine. I do. So can I get to perpetual punishment, understanding? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Look at that pretty face.
Over. Is that good, guys? On your side when you see it in the Zoom? Okay, perfect. So all you have to do is just hit.
Thank you. And would you hand me those glasses right there? Because I need those. Thank you. You are the best. Thank you very much. I think it's important. And so The presentation that I come to share with you all today is about perpetual punishment and understanding perpetual punishment. And one of the things that I did is, like, I took all these clippings that was written about me. And it's not to promote, you know, how wonderful I am. Because if you notice, those comments are not really attractive, you know, wonderful comments. They're saying things like countdown to execution, clemency petitioners, mom's plea, Illinois death row, 125 murderers face the ultimate punishment, life or death. And like all these different type of expressions. Hey, brother, how you doing, man? All right, I'm cool. That's all right. No, it's good to see a brother in the room. And so I'm teasing, man. Listen, y'all my people, y'all can go ahead on, man. I adopted y'all. And so anyway, it's so important to understand why someone who actually stands before you as a guilty person, right? Because I'm not someone that was exonerated. I was liberated. And I realized that, like, man, so can I possibly live the American dream? Not as long as perpetual punishment exists. And so I'm like, I need to begin to talk to people about why perpetual punishment is problematic. And for those of us that care about, you know, prison reform and bringing justice to our system and bringing people, come on in here and sit down, y'all. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, smiling and like, yeah, the stars here, right? But helping people to understand that every one of you in this room has a responsibility to help this cause, in my humble opinion, right? But if you don't understand, for example, and let me move this a little bit. Uh-oh. It's not moving.
You're trying to move the slide.
Yeah. Ah, thank you. My story, Renaldo. And I think it's important for people to understand because once again, my main point is going to be perpetual punishment, but I also want to give some sense of why I'm here and why I think I'm the perfect person to talk about this subject, right? So I served 37 years in the Illinois Department of Correction, 7 years in the Cook County Jail, 13 years on Illinois death row, and then 17 years with life without the possibility of parole, right? Until, and I say this to people, like, my life sentence was commuted by Governor J.B. Pritzker, right? But before that, right, my death sentence was changed by Governor Ryan because of the work of the father of someone in this room. That people don't even realize that Bill Ryan, Katie Ryan's father, who is one of my best friends on the earth, decided that the death penalty don't represent the best of Illinois, and it doesn't represent the best of our country. And no one really wanted to listen. And so Bill Ryan, right, said, well, I'm going to start knocking on doors and I'm going to start calling people. And I was in the cell writing, so yeah, we're going to win, right? But I'll be honest with you all, I was also saying, man, we got one little older white guy and two little white nuns. And I say this stuff intentionally because now it's so popular for people to get on the bandwagon, right, and say, I'm down with it. But it was Bill Ryan and two little nuns standing in the rain say, don't kill him. This is not right. We should have a moratorium against the death penalty. He read Helen B. James' right, Dead Man Walking, right? In fact, one of the things I love is that I got a chance since I've been home to actually do a presentation with her, right? And they would call it the battle of the two brains, you know? But it was so amazing because we got to talk about redemption and we got to talk about the importance of real looks and second looks. When people talk about second looks, I don't subscribe to the, let's give him a second chance. I never had a first chance. So how are you gonna give me a second chance? I wasn't rehabilitated because I wasn't habilitated in the first place. So I need to get a fair chance. But once I was given a fair chance, guess what happened? I began to sober up and I began to pay what they say your debt to society. How could you ever say I got away with anything? I served from the age of 19 to the age of 56 years young. I'm 58 years young now because I've been home 2 years. Thank you very much, right? And what I discovered though, when I came home is, well, I want to go because I'm moving faster than my slides. Inside, the branding of incarceration is inescapable. The reason I put these IDs out, because I want to help people to understand, even inside prison, there's a branding and they will punish you beyond your sentence. And so the classification, there's a classification with these color IDs. The white ID is you're low and you can be trusted by the administration. The blue ID say, if we run out of people with the white IDs, we'll trust you guys. The red IDs is high security risk offender, inmate, right? We ain't playing with you. You can't get nothing come, do not, you can't do anything. The green ID, which was Katie, Bill fought with me about, like, man, you shouldn't be a green ID. The green ID is considered extreme high risk offender. And so can y'all imagine, as loving as I am, as kind as I, right? Don't I appear to be loving and kind, right? They was like, no, we're going to brand you as you're not, there's nothing redeemable about you. There's nothing we can trust about you. And so we're going to give you this green ID so that everyone that come in contact with you will treat you as suspect to doing something. And so it's a punishment of a system that is subtle, because people don't realize that all of the things about branding has an impact on the way you see people treated. So when they begin to talk about policies and laws that occur, people don't say, hey, you got a green ID. They have to treat you that way. Hey, you have a conviction. They have to treat you that way. That's not true. So as you see this, I do this, actually, my team actually put these slides together and I'll be taking credit. Like, I'll be like, yeah, I did a wonderful job. But I think it's important that people understand, from the Cook County Jail, from death row to life without the possibility of parole, so y'all see that beautiful thing up there? That was called the clemency. Like, you get that right in the mail? Nope, I got it in person. And it was a signature on it by the governor. And he said, you're done. But then I walked out and I discovered that I had to register as a murderer. I had to register because there was an arson. Then I was discriminated against in housing. Then I was like, I want a partner. And I went to get a dog. And there's laws, right? Perpetual punishment is something that follow you on levels that most people don't even think about. How could you say, simply because someone had an offense that they're responsible for, that I took ownership of, that I began to conduct myself in the way that you say you want people to conduct themselves? Not only did I begin to conduct myself in the way you want people to conduct themselves, I began to talk to other people and my peers to say, not only am I going to conduct myself accordingly, you're going to do it. And let's do this together so that they don't see us as a threat. But nevertheless, I went to, the shelter, seeing this little wonderful dog that I was like, oh, me and you cool. I sat down on the floor in the back where they have the dogs. And I sat down and I want to see which dog would look at me. And this dog, he was like, what's up, Nardo? I'm like, man, what's up with you? He like, brother, trying to get out the joint. I'm like, I'm trying to bring you home, homie. And then I'm like, man, I won't do. This man, he like, let's parole him, right? Because they got him in cages, right? And I'm like, man, and if don't no one adopt him at a certain period, you know what happens? Y'all know what happens, right? They execute him. I'm like, man, and it was a little like he looked like Lassie, right? It was one of them little, what does they call the Lassie? Look, Collie, I was like Lassie, like, and I grew up with Lassie, so I'm like, oh, I'm like, I got me a Lassie. And I'm like, he was like, yeah. I'm like, they're gonna kill a brother if you don't get me. And so I go up front and start talking to them and they say, okay. And they start doing a background check. Like, they start asking me questions like, yeah, were you ever in prison? I'm like, yeah. What were you in prison for? I said, murder. They said, I'm like, wait, that didn't sound right. And they said, well, there's laws against you having a dog, and we don't want to trust you with a dog. I say, you don't want to trust me with a dog. Did you rather execute him? And I asked the lady, you rather execute the dog than let me have it? Well, we have to ensure, think about this language. They said, we have to ensure that this dog isn't hurt. I say, you are going to kill him. I want to take him home and I'm willing to feed him and walk him and do all this stuff. And you can even come and check on him. I'm cool with that because I had a parole officer already also. I'm like, I'm used to people checking on me. In prison, they used to count me 3 times a day. I'm not struggling with you because I'm living right. So, and when you're living right, you don't have to hide. I don't worry about your checkups because I'm doing right. I don't have to worry about you asking me to drop because I'm living right. I'm living in the light. They say, nope. And so I talk to people about, man, well, why is this able to happen? And then I started learning in Illinois. You know, like, well, I was ineligible for public assistance. You know, I talk to people all the time about the collateral consequences, right? What does that mean? What does that look like? Like, what does it look like? Can you imagine trying to get an apartment? Do all y'all, everybody here have an apartment, a house? By show of hands, like, do you wonder about your landlord or your not having access? Well, if you are in Illinois and you're convicted, they won't even rent to you because of your conviction. I understand the importance of, you know what, you committed this offense, and I can get there. You committed this offense. We sentence you for it. You serve the sentence. Why are you now holding me from experiencing what I now have a right to? And what I discovered was in Illinois, for example, there's 1,300 laws that are surrounded and dealing with perpetual punishment, permanent punishment. But I also did a little research about West Virginia, and I have a little bad news. There's 815 laws in West Virginia, right? 71% of them is dealing with employment. 80% of them is dealing with perpetual or permanent punishment. And so how is that allowed to happen? Because legislators, right, people you elect, are passing laws to say, we don't want anyone that is convicted to really ever be a part of society to its full extent. And I'm saying that that cannot be the legacy of any state, as long as those of us that care are active. But that is not the case, because if it was the case, it wouldn't be so many laws. I'm calling for a moratorium against all of them laws across the nation. Across the nation, there's 44,000 laws that affect you simply because you've been convicted. This is something that goes against the nature of the history of this nation, because as much as we talk about slavery, we have to talk about the pioneers and the original people that came here. Many of them was convicted and they no longer wanted to be treated unjustly, right? You remember England, and actually they did some of it in American history, right? Where they gave the scarlet letter so that people would know, like, oh, look at you, adulterer, murderer, robber, raper. And you'd be like, man, I can't go nowhere. In modern times, they call them amendments. They call them registries. And so even though, and I'm the first to say, I believe in accountability and responsibility, but I also believe that we owe it to people to at least give them a chance to do the right thing. Is that fair? So moving right along like a herd of turtles. So like I said, in Illinois, there's 1,300 collateral consequences. 73 restricts employment, 81 are permanent. Laws. Like, how do they even get away with that? Like, if you call your congressman, your state representative, you call the governor, y'all know the governor here? I want to meet the governor. Like, no? Okay. I'm gonna listen to y'all because I'm in this love fest and y'all gotta protect me now. So y'all gotta let me know this kind of stuff. No, don't do that, Renaldo. Thank you. I love y'all for telling me the truth, right? And so I did this little illustration about job applications, because oftentimes, you know, they create stuff when they talk about reentry programs, and they give the impression to people, because they do a reentry program inside the prison and tell you, oh no, they can't even ask you if you've ever been convicted. But then they do these background checks, and then there's laws that allow them to reject, because we're responsible for the liability that may come from you being present there. What if you decide to do something? But most crimes, do people realize most crimes are not solved? And most people that commit offenses are never arrested, right? And so it's somebody sitting next to you might be the one that's dipping. Destiny, I heard about you. Man, Destiny is my new friend. I call it like keep returning to prison status, perpetual punishment, the boomerang. I think it's important that people begin to, I think we have to simplify some of the conversations because it can get complicated when you start talking about, like in West Virginia, it's 815 laws. I would encourage people to go do the research and say, well, what are those laws and why do they exist? You go, what? Who are you talking to? Are we just rolling up on you? All right. I know it was you, Destiny. And so I want to, I love you, Destiny. Thank you. Like, I know. And so, like, I think it's important that, like, we begin to really question why they exist. And so there's a potential here in West Virginia for you to begin to show the nation. And that's why I wanted to start here. Because I'm going to go across this nation and talk to people about perpetual punishment. And I have the privilege now to say I started in the love state. I know there's another state called itself the love state. What state is that? Virginia? It's for the lovers. No, West Virginia. I'm making the declaration today. Will someone second the motion? West Virginia is the state of love? You second the motion? Thank you. Thank you. So I really am excited to tell you what we're doing, right, about this. I don't know why I put that slide in there. I think I just wanted to promote that I wrote this essay like many, many moons ago. And Dr. Katie, I love, in fact, you know I'm Katie, I'm like Dr. Katie, because you earned it, right? And you are a doctor and you set such an example of excellence. And I really honor you, not just as my friend, but as an academic, and that you're calling for higher education. And I want to declare in the state of West Virginia, let's show them what higher education looks like. Because when people are educated, they make better decisions. And so when people say, why would you support educating people in prison? Because I want people to be safe. And I want like people to have the chance to be the best possible person they could be. And so I'm, whatever I can do to promote it, whatever I can do to facilitate, I'm both feet in. You hear me? Yeah. But anyway, I woke up. This is why perpetual punishment should end. Because I woke up when I couldn't really even represent from a place of the depth of my hurt. I knew it was important to write, to give people an example. And so I'm going to make these slides, first of all, available to anyone that wants them, because I think it's important, and you can take the time to read Lockdown Prison Hard, which is a collection of essays of many of me and my peers that was a result from an essay contest, right? And then Katie actually gave us really the grace of editing and putting it together. And so many moons ago, right, we produced this book, Lockdown Prison Hard. And I just found out yesterday that we now continue to own access to this book, and we're fit to redo some stuff. And so I will be letting y'all know real soon, right, that the new version will be coming out with some really, really good information. I want to share, this is the building block. And Katie mentioned that. I want to play this really quickly. It's really.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like, what the f is in your mug?
Professor Live.
I've been rolling into something really questionable.
Don't you worry.
Control 1022.
How we doing on time? Oh, we're not gonna play all of this.
Control 1022.
This is like 14 minutes long. I'm going to make it available, but this is a documentary about the program we created. And actually, I'm the, like.
Respect.
Hey, come here, please.
Responsibility,
This one. I'm sorry, y'all.
ownership.
I really want to make that available, so anybody that want to play it, you can actually find it on YouTube. Perfect. Thank you.
Got a request.
You have a request?
I'm not seeing.
What do you
Yeah,
need?
we'll do that. Well, maybe. Okay. Is that all right?
I don't know what you did. Yeah.
Oh, it was me.
Yeah, you know what, Destiny, we're gonna have a meeting after this. Like, what are we doing? Like, I love like reminding people. So this was one of the circles of inside of Danville Correctional Center. We created a building block program that we really are trying to figure out how to even bring that program here to West Virginia. And it's a program where the incarcerated population was given the autonomy to begin to work on ourselves. And so we moved the administration out of the process and began to mimic and mirror the actual change that we wanted. And it started with 3 people. And when I left, it was 548 people in the program. And yeah, right, that's something that, thank you, right? That's really, because what happens, thank you. What happened is that we began to change the narrative that we all just want to do stuff and not be responsible for who we are and be responsible for our individual development, right? So with higher education, hello, y'all. How y'all doing? You're like, don't be calling us out. We just a little late. And so I'm being silly, forgive me. But we begin to really recognize the fact that we're the best at knowing what we need. And it's hard to lie to someone that know you, right? And so I spent many years with my peers, and so I knew their stuff, right? I knew Ice picked them, right? I'm like, dude, Ice pick, they called you that for a reason. Would you put that up? Would you destroy it? Like, you have to do it in phases though, because you don't really want to make people angry. But anyway, so these circles, like when you see this circle, it was a circle. It wasn't a restorative justice circle, right? It was a meeting of mentors, and we were talking about how do we create a space by which the administration would leave us alone? How do we begin to get people to put their weapons down without turning people in? And people begin to throw that stuff away, because when you don't have it, then nothing can happen. When you have it, there's the potential of bad things happening. And we begin to call each other on those things that allow people to do what? Create laws to say, see, the reason we want to keep tracing them is while they're in there, they're always doing stuff. And once they're out, we want to remind them, we still don't trust you. We still won't give you a chance to be the best possible you. But with higher education, you know, with dedication of community, we can change that narrative. And that's what I love about doing this work. So that's kind of just like that's actually self-promotion, right? That's a whole lot of me. But this is, I'm sorry, that is really a collage of pictures of, like, when you see these 3, those 3 right there is Brother Naviel, this is Mackenzie, and clearly that's your boy, right? The reason I really love that picture is all 3 of us all of us had life without parole, and we received clemency from the governor of our state. And we were at a clemency hearing. And so we were there, and the Brother Naviel, on his first day out, walked into the Thompson Center and represented a brother that was still in prison, clemency. And I thought that, I was like, man, there's no way I couldn't be there, and I'm free. And so he changed the policy of the Illinois Prison Project by saying there never should be a hearing when our organization is not present. And so Jenny Sobel, the executive director of the Illinois Prison Project, changed the policy so that every time a clemency occur, right, hearings occur, our staff is present so that people can be informed about how to help themselves, how to help their families. And so this is what we're doing about this process. And so all these people are people that actually was up there in the corner. That's Jennifer Sobel with our key studio. That's a brother. that had life without the possibility of parole for robbery. And he served over 37 years in the state of Illinois. And he was only released because of the work of the greatest organization next to yours, Katie. I'll yield to you, right? But we actually do this work so that we can show why perpetual punishment should not exist, because people deserve at this point, after 30 plus years, what more can I do? What more should I have to do? And I asked the question in the class the other day, last night actually, what do you owe to the guilty? It's so easy to talk about what you think you owe to the innocent, but my question is, as productive members of society, what do you owe to the guilty? I think I can humbly suggest to just give your very best. And what you want in return, right? The way you would want to be treated, isn't it fair to say you're going to treat people and give people the chance to be the best possible them? Is that reasonable? So I just really want to just remind people of that. Uh-oh, come on. No, I want to show this one. I want y'all to hear. This is Naviel. I was just,
You know, this is a calling and passion of mine. I'm working on clemencies, commutations of sentences. Staying up to 2, 3 in the morning, doing anything I can to help and aid people that.
You're not?
oh, I know. I know I ain't paying you. That was a joke. I'm gonna buy you a soda water
Okay, thank you.
next year when I come back.
But I don't think you should, because I think I broke it.
You know what?
I take it back. Just
Okay,
freeze.
don't worry about it. We'll make this available as well, Katie. Okay. It's okay, Dustin. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
We're stuck in general. Oh, no.
We froze. Did
It's
you?
gonna take everything then. Is that okay? Is that too far?
No, that's smooth. What is? Hey, that's the one thing. Oh, okay. we
Where we
good.
need to be, is that okay?
Yeah, because we running like, this is one of the reasons I put this in there, because back in the day, they used to call me offender, gang member, murderer, thief, liar, cheater, right? Now they call me director of education for the Illinois Prison Project, right? I tease my friends now, my peers, because when they call me, I'll be like, yes, it's Director Hudson. They be like, dude, you Nardo. I'm like, nope, I'm Director Hudson. And they said, man, why you be doing it? And I do it in all our meetings, like, because a lot of my peers that we were in Danville Correctional Center together, almost all of us, which is amazing, are directors of organizations right now. And it's because we had access to higher education, right? And so we understood that, like, if we're going to see a change, if there's going to be a change, then we need to be leading that conversation. We need to be leading that march to say, you know what? I need all the help I can possibly get, but I can't ask you to do what I'm not willing to do myself. Is that fair? And so anyway, so I'm a public speaker. I don't know if I'm a good speaker or not. Advocate, educator, activist, friend, and I'm an artist. Could y'all tell I'm an artist? Right? I have the hat. Hey, I so love you. Like you made such an impact on my life in that short period of time. They asked me a question, like said something yesterday. It's so funny to me. And I started trying to explain it, and I was going into detail. They said, hey, dude, I was joking. I know. You're stuck too right now, right? Yeah. Ha ha. So anyway, moving right along like her turtles. But anyway, it was so funny, but they made such an impact on me that they're engraved in my brain right now. I'm like, man, I love them. And it is my hope to be friends with you, really, for the rest of our lives, because I think it's so important that we connect with people that move us, that challenge us, right? Because I'm brilliant, to be clear, right? But someone to be brave enough to come at me, I'm like, ooh, you are so spunky. Like, what? And I'm just saying, I so appreciate you, you hear me? And I want to publicly acknowledge the fact that you are amazing. And I can only imagine what great stuff you're gonna do, but this ain't about you today. I'm just being silly, yo. That is so funny to me, though. Okay. What is this here? Oh. Would you make it play? And don't be knocking it out, Destiny. Uh-oh. 3-minute warning. Perfect. You know what? How about this? Let's start. Is that fair? Because this technology is what it is and it act out. And so that's just a video. Once again, we'll get it right and we'll share it with everybody that want to have access to it. But I do think it's important to begin to just open up for any question. And I want to make this really clear. I don't think you can ask anything that would embarrass me. Well, you the only one can't ask questions because they'll stump me. And I'll be like, well, I thought you didn't. I'll be like, Abba.
I'm gonna stop this so everyone can
Thank
see
you.
your face.
Uh,
Your pretty face. Look at
I
you.
know. Hey, America. How are you? So can we open up for questions? Katie, help, please. Yes. No. I listen, when I was inside, I'm going to plead, I'm going to lay my case out. When I was inside, I was a peer educator. And so I learned the STD, which most people know it used to be referred to as sexually transmitted diseases. They are now referred to as sexually transmitted infections. So when I was developing programs and I was thinking about little antidotes to help people make better decisions, I said, ooh, stop, think, and decide. My STDs. They're like, no, you're gonna have to come up with something better than that. I'm like, but it was. Like, I have testimonies of people that was having conflicts inside the facility. Like one of my buddies who was known for fighting, and he got into an altercation in the child hall with an officer, and he was like, ooh, and then he said, man, Mr. Hudson, then I remember my STDs, and I just stopped, and I decided, I started thinking, and I decided I don't want to go to SED. so I'm gonna shut up. He said, thanks for the STD. And I mean, I have multiple experiences. It worked, it really do, I do, right? And I still love my STD, but you're not the only one. I promise. Jennifer Soper, who is executive director of the Illinois Prison Project, when I told her, I said, yeah, I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna tell everybody about to stop thinking inside my STD. She said, don't do that. So you have an ally, my boss is your ally. And I was like, no, I'm gonna lay it out there, watch people gonna understand. Do y'all think that's a bad, like let's do it by. All right, you win. Like, it's like, you know what, you got me. But she went further than that and said, no, don't use it. I'm like, you ain't the boss of me. But then I remember, yes, you is. Right? She cut my checks. So yes, anyone else? Questions? I can't believe that I've done, I'm sorry. What would I say to someone if they had what? I don't understand the question. Pardon me? 37 years. Oh, if someone is looking at prison time, what I would say to them, I would say, learn everything you can about that system. Learn everything you can, like invest your time in you, right? While you pursue trying to get out. But no one, like I tell people all the time, no one will be as committed to your cause, even though people may think it when they work on your behalf. I've learned through my experience that you really have to invest in learning the system as best you can so that you can realize what you need to actually help yourself get to a better position. But that's a hard thing. And I don't want to take the position as if I know what everyone should do. I think that it would be really arrogant of me. I know that I spent 7 years in the county jail, 13 on death row, and 17 without life, without the possibility of parole. And I saw more people, lose their hope. I saw people commit suicide. I saw people, lose family members, etc. And so every situation is personal and different. But if the person invests as much of their energy themselves, then no matter who is faithful in your story or in your struggle, you will ultimately be the one to do the time. And so, but I do hesitantly and very cautiously say, I don't get to suggest what's the best route, but the suggestion would be study the orientation manual of that facility and learn the difference between your rights versus privileges. Figure out what laws, be it federal laws, if it's a federal case, that affects the process that you're now in. Because if you don't do that, then you're gonna do a lot of crime. You're welcome. I think one of the biggest things people can do is begin to figure out, first of all, what those laws are. And before you attempt to reach out to anyone, go and look those laws up yourself and decide how you feel about it, right? Because, we make the mistake at times of thinking that just because something is problematic in a presentation, you may find like, I actually agree with that. And so I would challenge people to go check it out for themselves and be educated about the things that you want to address and ask your state legislation, hey, we should not have, there's no need to have 815 laws, right, that affect people after conviction, right? I think it's fair that if you have, and I say this really cautiously, if you have a situation where you have an animal and you are told by the city, you must have a fence in order to protect that animal, right? That's rational. But if you tell someone after they complete their sentence, we will restrict you from every possible job, even being a barber, getting a barber's license, right? Wait a minute, are you serious? But yet in prison, they train you to be barbers. But then you come home thinking you have a trade that you invested in, right? And then they say, we won't give you a license. But then they'll tell you, but you owe restitution and you need to register. And when you register for a conviction, right, you need to pay. But what if I can't get a job? And so I would suggest first and foremost, learn what those, in this state specifically, like what are those 815 laws? What do they look like? Why is 72% of them dealing with employment? Think about that. Like you want people to be employed. You would think I believe, and I'm not lazy, I want to work. I don't want to have to ask someone for anything when I can go work myself. But then you say that it is your responsibility to look at the serious nature of the offense. I agree with that. I think people need to feel safe. I agree with that. Now, how do we make people feel safe while also giving the person that made that bad decision the chance to be better? And I think that in a humane society, in a just society, you can do both. You don't have to minimize the hurt of people to do right by people that do the hurt, right? I think they have to go hand in hand. You can't minimize, our responsibility to every person in our society. So I think starting there, and then the ones that you take issue with, figure out, okay, what would cause that? What would the process be to change it? And more than likely, it would have to ask for an amendment, right? Or actually petition the governor, right? To say, hey man, can you knock down 400 of them? Because sometimes it starts humbly. Remember, Katie, when they called for a moratorium in Illinois, it simply stopped all executions. So one suggestion is to ask the state legislature, hey, can we call for a moratorium against these laws? Like people don't even think about how simple of an act that is. They all they have to do is vote on it on the floor. We've put a halt on that. No one can act upon this or discriminate against someone until we figure out how to do something better. All right. Yes. No questions. All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pam. I love Pam. Pam is so smart. Hey, Pam. Hug.
So you're putting together this group, interest, incarcerated individuals helping each other. What's the response? Corrections officers.
Well, I'll tell you what, like in Danville, what happened was we had a lot of meetings, first of all, because there was a lot of resistance. But what we did was I put the proposal together, and because I understand the psychology of corrections, right? They are generational, them versus us. And anything that implied some type of kindness toward an inmate, you're an inmate hugger, you're an inmate lover, and they try to shame you from being a good person. And so what we did is we didn't even listen to that. We put the proposal together and we suggested to the warden, say, hey, listen, are you tired of assaults happening in the facility? Are you tired of visiting the segregation unit and people are throwing feces on you and throwing urine out of the chuck holes? What if we created a conversation to start the people to dealing with, why are you doing it? Right? And the staff don't have to be on the front line. See, the selling point was we removed them from the immediate threat. And we asked, which in fact, one of the brothers challenged me today when I was visiting the prison, hey, y'all, just really quickly, I went back to jail. Like, how smart is that? Like, I was sitting there thinking, dude, you tripping, right? And so I was sitting there like having a different experience than the inside students. I was like, I've been here before, I'm ready to go, right? That's real stuff. But then I remembered, I said, Renaldo, to those that much is given, much is required. So man up, toughen up. Now, what do you have to say to people that are still there? To those that much is given, much is required. I have a tremendous amount of privilege now, even with all of my personal trauma, even with my story, and it's some stuff there. But I'm like, now I walk into doors and I have I can open another handle and it's not locked, right? They gave me back my ID this morning and I walked up out of there. I was like, rest to go, right? So we had to get the buy-in. So I didn't look at the administration as my enemy. Even though they was very suspicious, they say he got good game. And he's sweet, he's clever. But they could not fight against the evidence that I have a history of fighting with them. And I stopped it. I have a history of gangbanging and I stopped it. I left the gangs for irreconcilable differences. I divorced my relationship from them. I'm like, dude, I don't want to be with y'all no more. Like, we can't work it out. And so they did not take me through the process of recanting my history and getting me to confess or tell us everything about your life in that life. I'm not doing that because my change wasn't predicated around me wanting to be your snitch. My change was predicated around, I want to be a good person. That ultimately I am and was, I just made a horrible decision. And that moment affected not only my life, but it affected the life of a man named Mr. Folk Peterson. And I always remind people that the cost of my brilliance today, and I don't run from that, was his life. And I think it's important that we name those things because oftentimes people think the only people that should be standing in front of them having these type of conversations is people that was exonerated. And I say, nope, the people that was exonerated, that was innocent need to be left the hell alone. Those of us, right, that are guilty need to be doing this work to say, hey, you know what? Restitution and rehabilitation in the process looks like this. To me, punishment should be development of people. You should punish people in a way that develop them, not destroy them. And so the only way we can change that is we change the narrative. We deal with what's called the dangerous one-sided narrative, which is you talk about the aggravating factors that will never change, right? But the mitigating factors have the potential to change constantly. And so we walk in the room and we talk to them about that. And they bought it. And they gave us a whole wing of 112 beds. And they gave us new mattresses and they gave us new pillows, because I asked for that stuff, because I understood that my peers wanted them soft mattresses. And I'm like, man, I got to convince some of the hardest people in this joint why they should come and be a part of this program with me. And they made me look really, really smart, because they like, yeah, you know what, Mr. Hudson, we like these clean cells. We like these new mattresses. I say, yeah, but now what I didn't tell you is you got to follow some rules, because we have to pay rent. And the rent we paid to have possession of the program was being in compliance. And teaching my peers to be in compliance made them better, free people. And it made the prison safe, the threats. And when you watch the Building Block documentary, you'll see staff who was some of the worst. The staff that's testifying in this video, in our documentary, is the lieutenant is the internal affairs lieutenant, whose job is to deal with people from controlled chaos, right? Anybody that's ever been in the system know that they keep control through controlled chaos. There always has to be a crisis that they have to deal with because they want to keep you off balance. And what I figured out is, no, I never can be the best me if I'm off balance. So how about you get out the room, Internal Affairs, and let us talk. So we developed the youth think tank. We was having problems with the phone system because people were fighting over the phone. And so in the youth think tank, I went back there and I wrote it out and I gave them the problem. I said, come up with a solution. How do we fix this problem? And these young men from the ages of 18 to 25 came up with a policy that changed the prison phone system. And I said, oh, this works. These guys are brilliant. So they need to be in the leader. There's a Greek expression, old men for counsel, young men for war. People think that's a biblical, it's really Greek, right? What happens as we get older, we become more hesitant, right? That's why you can't get me to run up a hill. Take the hill. Ah, my knees hurt. But if you notice in the military, who do they have on the front line? Anybody know that? Young people. Because we're going to take the hill. It don't make sense, but we're going to do it. Right? And so I knew that I had that understanding. And so I spent the time with them and say, rather than running trying to take a hill, how about y'all had a responsibility to keep everybody safe on the wing? How about we get the police that when it's time for count, they don't have to chase you around the wing, right? Just go on to the cell. And so our program that was governed by us changed the atmosphere, changed the way the staff would come to the wing, because they would come to the wing and do their normal, lock up, lock up, lock up, right? And they would come to the wing to say lock up, and everybody was already locked up. And they said, Hudson, how did you get them to do that? I said, I didn't get them to do that. Y'all gave us the opportunity to be the best us. And many of those men that's in that program are now free, and they're working, and they're doing stuff, not because the administration gave them the opportunity to be better. They got out of the way, and we began to work to help us be better. Yeah. Anybody? Hello, girlfriend. Well, yeah. Well, no, I will give you the quick version, because one of the things in my personal training, they have like the elevator pitch, and then you have like a presentation of the wonderful, amazing, motivational story of Renaldo Hudson, which I will come back and actually give you all for the record if you invite me back, right? But I will say to you, when I walked into prison in 1983, I couldn't read or write. So they could have said to me in that moment, hey, listen, spell A, spell apple. I'd be like, how about you give me a little help with A? A, huh? Spell A? Spell A. I don't know. I literally was that illiterate, right? And I shared this earlier with people, is that, so I actually am the person that committed an offense at the age of 19, the act of murder, under the influence of drugs. That's not an excuse, that's simply my story. And so I was actually using the drug, I don't know if y'all familiar with PCP. And so I was walking around fantasizing about a world that I wanted that wasn't a world that was reality for me. And in that state, I ultimately took a person's life and ended up in the Cook County Jail. So I spent 7 years there. During that process, I was a gangbanger because I couldn't function as a normal person because I couldn't read. So I had to have people to quote, even as the gangs require you to have knowledge of literature, right? So I had people quote stuff to me and then I could regurgitate it, but I couldn't read it if you put it on a sheet of paper. But I received help. I began to get help from people that William actually helped me at one point, William Peoples, right? And we started reading the dictionary and we started, people laugh at me when I tell them I started reading The Cat in the Hat, and I went from The Cat in the Hat, to Donald Gordon. I don't know if any of you all are familiar with urban novels, Donald Gordon and them. And I began to advance to the point that I began to read Crime and Punishment, right? I read The Anatomy of Government, and I began to realize that society owed so many of us so much more than it has given us. I read The Count of Monte Cristo, right? And I discovered that, and I thought that it was my responsibility to try to escape every chance I get, like, because I was like, The Count of Monte Cristo said, and then Angela Davis, right? I was like, ooh, yeah. In fact, I'll be at an event with her next week, right? So I get to meet and eat dinner with, hopefully, like, at least that's my goal. But I might be like, get out of here. You're not famous enough to be here. I'll be like, I'm Renaldo, like, and I wear my new blue hat, but I'll be like, blue hat, blue tie, right? And black sweater and stuff. But I already have my outfit picked out. Like, boy, you looking so good. But so, sister, I began to recognize that I had a potential that was untapped, and while being responsible, what I discovered was that there's this thing called historical trauma. What I discovered was that when I began to look at my, trajectory of life, that my twin brother being murdered by my stepbrother, right? When my brother decided to kill my family and shot me in the chest with a 12-gauge shotgun, killed 2 family members and shot 5 others, that had an impact on me. And rather than I'm having access to treatment, when shootings happen today, they have wraparound services, they have counselors, they have all these things. That didn't exist in 1979 when I was shot. And so when I went home from the hospital, what I discovered was my family was so torn, my family was so broken that they couldn't receive me back. In fact, I looked like my brother William. And so I was a trigger. I didn't know what trigger meant back then, but I was a trigger because they would panic when I walked in the room. And so that sent me to the streets. And so the streets don't ask you what's wrong with you, they ask you what you got to get high on. And so I began to get high, and to the point I ended up once again in the streets. And I saw Mr. Peterson, I thought he was rich, and he was living in the slums, he was living in a kitchenette apartment, and I took his life. And I say that not like pridefully, I say that with as much humility as I can say. It continually reminds me to say to people, be careful how you treat people, because you never know what's going on. I think about the teachers that I'm proud of. I'm proud of you as a teacher because I see your work, I see your heart, I see your commitment. But the teacher that should have invested in me, shame me, shame me to the extent that, like, now I have good hygiene and I smell good and all that. But in the 5th grade, I had some really young boy issues, right? Any of y'all have young sons, anything, that they can smell like little beasts, if you will. And so this teacher called me up front, in front of the class, and pulled out a bar of soap, and he pulled out a rag and said, go wash your nasty. But this was a white guy, Mr. Politier, I'll never forget his name, right? That had an impact on me where I never went back to school. So I was a grade school dropout, right? And so these factors did factor into, right? You didn't have to wonder what was the formula for a killer. If you do that basic math, you'd be like, ooh, how could we not expect this person to not be successful, to not do any, a horrible thing, But it's not an excuse. To be clear, I began to recognize that despite those things happening to me, I owe it to humanity to be the best possible person I could be, despite the fact that people couldn't see me, even though I was standing in front of them. And there's so many people that are incarcerated because don't no one see them. And when we begin to see people, I told a brother earlier, one of the professors, that a warden invested in me. A warden, someone that you wouldn't expect, right? Because especially in this era, hate the police, hate everybody that's in different uniforms. And I'm saying that I have an issue with the criminals in uniform, not the people that really want to rescue people. Like if you have a real problem and someone step up to rescue you out of that, that is an honorable thing. I tell people all the time, as a kid in prison, I never told my peers, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. I dreamed of being a fireman because I wanted to be the dude that busts through the door. Don't through the door, I'm saving you, right? But now I am a fireman, just a different kind of fireman. I go in now with buckets of water in conflicts. And I tell people when I walk across bridges, like I always take these buckets of water with me because I know somebody gonna set the bridge on fire and I need to get back across it, right? And it's my job, right, to say, hey, wait a minute, let's talk about this, right? I'm a fireman now. I rescue people. I rescue bridges, right? I'm a conflict resolution expert because almost every type of conflict you can imagine, believe it or not, inside of 37 years of a journey. And I know I'm all over the place with it, but I just want to give you some context because it wasn't just one moment, it was the threading constantly. Y'all familiar with the expression, it's the little foxes that spoil the vine, right? And I was like, oh, what does that mean? It means that the fox understood that it was grape in that vine. But what he didn't know is he was killing the grapes. And oftentimes those little things you ignore be destroying people. Even though you be like, oh, it's just a little, but no. Like when you think about who around you, you should have been a little kinder to. Because you don't never know what people are. People, it's like so many people are depressed. So many people are distressed. And I tell people all the time, I don't have enough time left on the earth to be depressed. I just don't. I'm like, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to sing my song. I'm telling y'all, real talk. Take me home, country road. I'm now in West Virginia. I belong in West Virginia. Mountain Mama, take me home. I want to know who Mountain Mama is. Do y'all know? Tell her I'm looking for her. Don't nobody? Huh? Ah. Okay. She don't exist no more, huh? Anyway, no, I'm serious, man. I used to have really bad moments. And I'm telling y'all, I didn't even know how beautiful West Virginia was. But that song sunk down in me. And so when I was having bad moments on death row, right, we used to have room galleries. And so I'm not joking when I tell y'all, I would bust out and go to singing that on the gallery. And guys were like, man, won't you shut up, man? You don't even know nothing about no West Virginia, right? I'd be like, yeah, I do. I heard the song and I used to remember he used to be singing. I'd be like, I'm gonna try to mimic this, man, because this is such a beautiful story. And I want to imagine, why did this person sing with such passion, right? And so it's things like that, that people, when you talk about what helped you, what caused you to be better, it's knowing that love was out there, despite all the dark moments, despite all the distress, right? I didn't know that I knew that someone, because they played it on the radio, right? And now I'm like, man, I'm in West Virginia. And I get to, like, I got pictures, I'm sending back to my peers. I'll be like, man, not only was I in West Virginia, I met some of the most loving people on the earth. And I'm telling y'all, we need to go visit West Virginia. So I'm telling y'all, it might be a surge of brothers showing up. All right. Thank you, y'all.
So we have a new mountaineer. We have the room for another 15 minutes. So informal conversations. I know there were a couple hands up, so please come up and ask Renaldo your question. I think he would be amenable to a picture or two. And we will, and there's a Appalachian Prison Book Project table in the back. So please sign up if you're interested in learning more about the work that we do. We'll be sharing your slides on all of our social media in the coming week. We'll have a Renaldo week, and we will absolutely invite you back. And thank you again for being here and such a beautiful audience. Thank you so much.
Who want to take a picture with me? Don't everybody run out the room so fast. We out of here.